be talking about this MLB slate. We have the early main slate on DraftKings, the main slate on FanDuel's later. I'm going to pop in live, but it might be a little bit late at the 5:30 Eastern. But I'll try to get live for the second live sweat, and we will be doing a golf show after this. Also, do want to remind everybody, our packages are we've got all the trials up, and like I said, we're redesigning the site, but at the same time, all the information is on there. It's just it will look a little prettier in a couple weeks. But I would love for everybody to check it out. And those trials are a great way to do it. Even if you've used a trial before, feel free to use it again, because we did add some stuff and we want to show what we've added. So with that said, we can get into the slate sheets. Not a good night for MLB. That's just the way it goes. Sometimes talk about your night, and then we'll get into the slate.
We did hand build the Columbus Blue Jackets. They put 8 goals up yesterday in the hockey. That was good.
Any profit in hockey?
Yeah.
Nice.
But that was pretty much it. Basketball, you needed like 500 points on a day that we thought would be no value. You need like 500 points to win.
Well, we said there was no value. Actually, I thought there would be a ton of value, and that's exactly what happened. Yeah.
Well, the value was Steph Curry. that was the
well,
value.
I mean, I had so somehow I lost in basketball with 100% Ja, who had 50 whatever, and 90% Curry.
I was gonna say that sounds like the Bobby special. Just play them together and just pile away.
It was exactly what I did, and it's still just too many of the other wrong pieces, I guess.
So interesting slate dynamic, right? So the main is at 1 o'clock, and so at 6:30, 6:35 is the night slate, and then it's also, I think, when the FanDuel, I guess, mains, whatever you call it, starts. So 5:30 actually is pretty timely for the.
I might be a little bit late, like I said.
That's fine. I can fire that up at 5:30.
Okay. Yeah, and my plan is, look, I always want to under-promise, over-deliver. My plan is always to do at least one show for the main slate every baseball day. We do two almost every day. But when there's the early slates and then the late slates, it gets a little tricky sometimes to jumble them. But we will probably end up doing them anyway. I'm just throwing it out there that that's sort of the general outline.
Not to mention the fact that FanDuel's got the very early slate and the early slate, and the evening slate, the medium slate, the night slate, the midnight slate. It's got 400 different slates. So it's listen, not to mention basketball, golf, hockey. It's DFS is a lot of stuff to choose from. Not to mention a big full 5-game soccer slate starts 2:45 today. So
oh my God.
There's plenty of stuff to do.
Now tell me, do you think I can just rely on the projections for stuff for the soccer in general? No. Why?
There really aren't any. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, Roto Grinders has some okay projections, and the other place I get some from is remember that Draft Dime place I had that dude on here from Texas. They do some. So you already have like 2, and from what I heard from Jack Burkhart's the guy that does. He used to work for RotoWire, and now he works for Underdog, but he was like the main soccer guy over there. And he tried to do like draft projections and stuff. And he tells me that it's a very, very difficult sport to figure out as far as doing good projections and correlations. He tried to explain why. I didn't quite understand it, but I kind of trust him on it. And what I really do for soccer is I watch the RotoWire podcast. Those guys are good. And I watch this free one by this guy Charlie, who works for FSI, and then I just kind of pick my favorites, and they showed me how to do a little research on RotoWire. I did a video on them. You got to dig for it, and they have good cheat sheets on there where you can come up with good plays, and then you just kind of you got to go to either SaberSim or wherever you're building. Make sure you click that run good button. It's sometimes hard to find, but if you can find the run good button, which usually means for me limiting 67% ownership to any one player. Also, I try to go min uniques too inside, but the problem is it's sometimes a really, really short slate. So if you go min uniques too, you end up leaving 8,000 on the table. So you don't want to do that. But it's definitely a fun sweat because everything's going at the exact same time.
Right.
And that's it. In 4 games, you can put them all up on your screen if you felt like it. And it's definitely a fun sweat. Anyway, baseball is also kind of a fun sweat. And there's 10 games at 1:10 p.m. and you got all kinds of stud pitchers pitching.
Yeah.
Who do you? I mean, want to go game by game or just who do you like the most?
I think we should probably let me pull my screen up. I guess we'll go game by game because there's weather concerns.
Ooh, where?
So it's our first weather slate. Like, I don't like those games anyway, so I am very content. One is we've already got the announced late start. Still possible, but unlikely chance of a postponement in Chicago.
In Chicago,
and then in St. Louis also looks pretty bad. So and it goes through the whole day and night. So again, I don't like those games. I actually think that you could argue for some hitting because it's not bad hitting weather if they did play in St. Louis. It's much warmer today and the wind's blowing out pretty hard. But I don't really like trying to attack either of the pitchers that much. It's Kikuchi and what is it? Kikuchi and let me see something real quick. Yeah, Kikuchi and isn't it Gray? Yeah, Kikuchi and Gray. So I don't like the pitching all that much. I don't like the hitting all that much. So I am just literally I X'd out those games.
Are the White Sox is that orange or yellow or
orange?
Oh, okay.
It's yellow orange because they announced the delay already.
Okay.
Another reason I like doing it for the games to start late. It's not like you can late swap these guys. We'll see what they do with it this year. It's been hit or miss in the past. But like, if
meanwhile, we're looking more closer and closer to needing a freaking sweep in Colorado for Oakland.
I know. It's unfortunate, man. But well, look, we decided to gamble. You know.
One thing I will say, two things. First of all, you get a strike, right? You get one team losing, and there were 73 people in our contest. We were the only psychopaths to take them.
But that's what that was kind of what I thought was cool about it.
Perfect. I actually thought they'd be higher owned, but no, everybody wants to survive because they're smarter than we are, I guess. All right. So let's get into this. So Kansas City, Milwaukee, right? Who are these pitchers again? Who we got here? We got everybody's good today, right?
Reagans and Peralta, obviously, as you can see, and this is very early exposure stuff, so don't trust my numbers right now. But both Reagans and Peralta, I think, are pretty interesting plays. It's going to try – SaberSim is going to try and give you a lot of KC to stack against Peralta. I'm not sure I want to do that on this slate. They have one of the lower totals. I was kind of surprised that actually I thought that the lower total. I thought Kansas City would be a favorite here. They're not. And Peralta's a solid enough pitcher where I'm actually not happy with getting this number of Peralta, but it's not like horrible. And I love getting to, you know me, I like to be over on Reagans in general. I just think there's incredible upside. And I think this is a matchup he actually could. I mean, you have Isaac Collins batting third. Like, this is not a lineup that I'm terrified of. So I kind of like both pitchers here, and because of it, I have some hedge bet stacks here, but for Kansas City, but that's really because Saberson's giving them to me in my early builds. I don't particularly wanted. I actually lowered my exposure to Kansas City because I felt like it was too high.
Yeah, I was a little surprised that Reagans at that price is not higher owned. I mean,
there's a lot of good pitchers on the slate.
No, I know that, but he's up. I mean, he's 8,100 with like 30-point upside. You know what I mean? Like, it's not. I'm not particularly afraid of Milwaukee. If you want to know the truth. So I'm actually a little not confused, but I would have predicted. I was about to say I would have predicted he'd be higher owned, but then you do have, like you said, Skeens and Scooble are pretty reasonably priced at 10K. So maybe the ownership is fair. I'll put it that way. But I do like him. In my builds right now, I'm not really getting too much of him. I mean, I'm really getting to the aforementioned. We'll get there to Skeens and Scooble. Honestly, I am getting just about the same amount of Peralta as I am as Reagans. And yet, as you mentioned, I'm also getting a decent amount of Kansas City in here. We've seen Peralta go. Listen, as long as we've been playing him, right? He can do it, but then again, he can get it done to him too. So I think this is a legit three-pronger.
Yeah, I hear you. And I'm not going to be on the Milwaukee side when they're going to try and maybe I'll end up with a couple stacks. Don't get me wrong, but they're going to try and force. I know they're going to try and get me to play some Milwaukee, and I don't really.
I don't want to do that.
I also do not want to play the Rays, particularly. Although that is 90 degrees in Tampa today. I like both these pitchers a lot as well, and I would say I'd avoid the stacks. But again, you can see, and again, this is from a Sabersim Runs. They're trying to force me to get that Pittsburgh and Pittsburgh especially, but even some of the Tampa Bay, which just feels like I'm not supposed to do that against Skeens. So I'm manually might just be lowering these because I have a stronger take of some games I like a little bit later.
Well, one of the things that you can use the Sims for is to learn something, and like if you don't want to just like play these types of builds. And what I like to think about is this. So without even looking at Sims, without looking at anything, I would say, oh wow, Skeens is he's like the nuts. He's like the nuts every day until either has surgery or retires. You know what I mean? Like he's just he's just that kind of pitcher. It seems right. Where he's just going to be 10K plus forever, and he's going to be a great option forever. And it's at 10-3, I think he could be one of those guys that you look back and say, I was able to play him at 10-3, really? So I was expecting, obviously, to get a good projection on him, and then when I run the Sims, get, like you said, like a whole ton of Tampa. All right, that's the way it goes. But I'm actually getting like a full 67% of like Skeens in spite of all that, which means to me probably a good play. You know what I mean? Like if I'm using systems that by their nature take the obvious plays and fade them, and then it's giving them to me anyway, it's probably a damn freaking good play. So I'm not fighting this. I'll take the 2/3 ownership with Skeens, and I'll just kind of roll with it. I am getting, as you also mentioned, though, I am getting that Pittsburgh stuff. As a matter of fact, I want to say they're my top owned right now stack is Pittsburgh. So that's where I am right now.
Yeah, that's what they're giving you. And again, I'm just going to remind everybody, I think Pepio is an awesome pitcher. I think he's got the 3rd best K prop on the slate. So I am, again, there's a lot of good pitching on this slate. We have the number 1 starters back, but it's definitely it feels funny, although it is good hitting weather. And I guess if you're going to say one of them are more gettable, I guess Pepio is one of the more gettable ones. But all this, and the guy who's been who had the best score of the season as a pitcher, I believe, outside of Eovaldi, who pitched a shutout in a slate we didn't play yesterday. Mackenzie Gore is going to be completely overlooked. And I get it. It's not the ideal matchup, but we saw this before. Don't we think we should get to a little bit of him? Like, I mean, he looked incredible. He's always had great stuff. You've also got Easton Lucas, who's starting at 4K in case you wanted to flip your build and go a very strange direction. I don't think I can do it because there's too many pitchers with upside probably for me to play him. But I think Mackenzie Gore, first of all, I like the over on that K prop. And I think he's kind of interesting at that low ownership, even though I didn't get to him in my other builds. How about you?
Well, you like him so much that you're willing to skip over the Angels-Cardinals game and the Minnesota White Sox game.
I just said I blocked those out. I'm not playing them. So
I'm telling you, that's what it is. Let me, before we get up.
We can talk about them. Sorry, I'm not playing them, and I'm a little worried about the weather, and I just don't like the games anyway.
I mean, I'll tell you, I certainly before I get into the Mackenzie Gore, which I happen to like, I think that I think Sonny Gray is definitely. Again, we got to watch the weather, obviously, but I think Sonny Gray is in play, and I like Kikuchi also. I don't know. So anyway, they're definitely not top options. We're talking about slates with Skeens, Skubal, Reagans, among others. So I don't know if we can get to them, but I didn't want to pass them over. And I actually, just before we forget, I actually do have the Cardinals rated pretty high on a value perspective. So watch the weather, watch whatever, and I'll just kind of leave it at that. And just before we get there, Minnesota White Sox, if in fact the game played, as sick as this is, I would be getting some White Sox in here. So I'll just kind of leave those. Now, with respect to Washington, Toronto, I totally agree. I think that it's kind of, again, they don't stagger. They have the number one starters, and it takes a couple of weeks before teams kind of deviate from the plan, and these guys are all not going in the same slate, all the time again.
Yeah.
But like, there's gonna be slates. I'm telling you, where Mackenzie Gore is gonna be like clearly the top option. You know what I mean? Like on the slate. And this one he's gonna get hidden because of all these other really, really good options.
Right.
But who's to say that he's not? Listen, I asked you these questions before the first day that we talked about this. Like, who are guys that might be ready to make that just kind of next like leap? And I don't know whether Mackenzie Gore, we actually talked about him, but he's exactly the type of guy that we could have talked about. You know what I mean? He's shown flashes. He had a good rating, good prospect, kind of going up and down a little bit. Put a couple of good games together last year, and maybe he did figure something out over the whatever. Now I know the real projection junkies are going to say, well, you can't rely on one start. You can't rely on whatever. You got to go back to 4,000 starts before you can do whatever. But I don't know. With these types of guys, I kind of rather, I don't know. I'd rather presume that something's different. You know what I mean? And before he becomes like 11K. You know what I mean? Like maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he's just that was an outlier and he's going to be like this forever. But if he is like 11K in like 3 weeks, it would be cool to have been able to play him today.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely agree with that.
Yeah.
What about the other side? Who's pitching for Toronto?
For Toronto, it's this 4K kid, Easton Lucas.
Yeah, I don't think I need the hitting that much to do that. I think I need the pitching more than the hitting.
Yeah, I agree. This is definitely a strong pitching slate where I'd expect at least a couple of very good performances. So it's hard. Yeah. It's going to be hard with the 4K. If we had like all the games today, and you wanted to play like if you could play Judge and Shohei and stuff like, but I just don't think you need it.
I will say that I'm getting to Washington again as value, and that could be my team again. Every year I've got this team that I end up playing all the time.
Yeah,
maybe Washington's the team this year. I don't know.
Yeah, and even though I like Gore a little bit, I also like Toronto a little bit. I think I think Toronto and Washington are both reasonable plays here, and I think they. Again, no major downgrade with this park this time of year where we have some major downgrades. Like I was saying about the Twins and White Sox, and if you're getting them, like you have 20-mile-an-hour winds blowing against you in 40-degree weather. If you look, you could score runs. We saw it happen last night in some games. I don't think anybody scored more than like 10 fantasy points in those games. You know what I mean?
Right.
Not getting the ball out of the park, and you have to hit home runs to win on big slates. On smaller slates, you can maybe play with it, but I don't think you can on this one. All right. Here is the look. I've said a lot of pitchers I like, and I think you could like another slate. I'd be making a real case for Springs. He definitely doesn't have the leash, but he's got the strikeout upside. It's a tough matchup against the Cubs, but overall, I think this is where we get our bats from. I like this Chicago Oakland game, and I especially like the Oakland side of it.
That's interesting. I'm rerunning everything right now, and only because again I'm getting jammed in these freaking Pirates. But the good thing is that I'm gonna probably do what you said. I'll probably X out those two weather games, just if for no other reason to get me different. Also,
yeah.
And then we'll see where I end up, but. It's possible that Oakland, this new stadium is Coors Field. You know what I mean? It's very possible.
Mm-hmm.
We got 30 runs in the last 2 games, right, or something.
Yeah.
So
more than that.
And like I said, it's not exactly, Greg Maddux and Dave Stewart pitching for these teams right now. But like you said, Springs is pretty good. I don't know. I think I might go for the bats as well in this game.
Yeah, I really like the idea of doing the bats here, especially because I'm looking at this ownership so low. I do think these numbers are wrong for Springs. I mean, 4.6K for a prop, like 4.6 expected strikeouts, that seems so low. Like, I don't think I'm going to get to him, but I am going to just raise that number because I don't buy it. Like,
right.
he just put up 33 in his first start. Mackenzie Gore was barely better than him.
Right.
And he's people have talked about him for a long time. He's a real he's a real guy. He's got real stuff. All right. San Fran and Houston. And on these slates, I'll just say for me, I do not find myself with the lower strikeout guys like Framber Valdez very often. Now, occasionally it'll burn you and he'll throw like a complete game that'll probably come later in the season. And I don't have any interest in Landon Roop. I do have interest in the Houston bats. That's where I have the most interest in this game. How about you, Sheets?
You still slide Framber Valdez into these FanDuel lineups because of those quality starts, or not really anymore?
Yeah, but you have no need to today because.
Oh, that's right. He's not on the FanDuel slate, right?
Oh, but even if he was, like, there's just 9 other guys who have, who are much better plays, I feel like, than he is.
Yeah, I agree. He's not a guy I play either. So for me, Houston is the only thing I would play, and even that's not particularly. I mean, I shouldn't say that. I mean, if I got double digits of Houston, that wouldn't bother me. Pitcher I've never heard of, and I got Houston at home. I don't mind that.
So far with everything we go through, it's pretty obvious that everyone's going to play the Mets because nobody we've gone through has any ownership on them. Like, no teams, I think Houston is a very, okay, I'm going to bump them up a little bit just to make sure I get at least some of it. I think Houston is, on other slates, I feel like they'd be the chalk here, and I don't really know entirely why they aren't the secondary chalk behind them.
Boy, Mets is chalk, huh? That's going to be the story, huh? Interesting.
Look at the run total.
No, I know. No.
I mean, it's one of the worst teams in baseball, which always means volatility. You have Connor Gillespie, who couldn't do much as his only start against a weak offense. We don't know how good he actually is. It makes sense. And all of this stuff, and we're gonna say, again, we'll throw in Dylan Cease at 0 ownership or very low ownership for Cease today. And I think they're going to want you to play some Cleveland because it is the kind of team that could hit Cease. I could see that happening, but it's still a 3.1 total, and you have the best strikeout pitcher outside of Skeens in baseball, probably, or one of the best 5. I don't know, man. This is another one that I think you could take a chance with to get a little different. And I also like San Diego a little bit. It's only 58 degrees, but winds are blowing across the field, not blowing in as much. I think San Diego and Cease make a little bit of sense here.
Yeah, I'm getting like a full 20% of Cease, and I'm just modeling in my head for all those lineups to bust. I'm just modeling in my head for this to be those games where Cleveland just freaking puts their bat on their shoulder, challenges Cease to throw strikes. Cease is off the plate. Next thing you know, he's got 51 pitches through the second inning, and you're struggling. You know what I mean? But like you said, even with that start, he can still end up with 10 strikeouts. That's what Cease is. I mean, he's a huge strikeout percentage guy who is not always around the plate. And Cleveland, unfortunately, for Cease backers here, is kind of tough team to kind of strike out. But like you said, low ownership, that kind of like tilts it in my favor, and also tilts it, I guess, in the Simmons' favor too, which is why I am getting a full 20% of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that makes a little bit of sense. I mean, obviously, not the matchup you want, but it's kind of like, okay, you just got to play the play at some point. Did you get to any San Diego?
I was about to talk about San Diego. Yeah, I have them as rated really, really highly. Not quite getting them yet, but I think that when I start Xing out those teams like you mentioned, I think I'm going to start getting a little bit more exposure to a lot of these teams.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. All right, Detroit and Seattle. The Detroit stat that started hot last night did not end up getting there in a major way. Castillo and Skubal, talk about great pitchers. Let's throw Skubal, who might be the best of them, into the mix. You could argue, and he's got the big K prop also. I'm going to be spread out on these guys, but I think Skubal Skeens just has a nice ring to it as your baseline. I don't think I'm going to be doing the Castillo thing particularly that much today, although he does have a reason that the strikeout prop may keep me somewhat interested, but I don't want to go crazy with it. Where do you stand with this? And of course, SaberSim is going to give you some of the hitting because that is what they do.
It is. I'm getting 20% Castillo, and in my head, I'm modeling for that to lose again. Castillo just never does it for me for whatever reason. I created this narrative that he's good during the day games. I don't know if that's actually true. But
that was a thing with him. I've heard that before.
I think he just heard it from me. I think I just made it up. Because he like always seemed to pitch for the Reds. You know what I mean? Like during the day, I guess. Yeah. I guess that is what I was thinking about. Nonetheless, I'm getting like 20% of him, and I'm getting all good amount of Skubal. I mean, between Skeen, Skubal, Castillo, and Cease, that's representing like a good amount of my pitchers. And that's why unfortunately Reagan's right now is just kind of on the outside looking in for some reason, for no reason, just that there are other options. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to have to do the Seattle here. I know that they're going to want me to. I'm more inclined to play Detroit than Seattle, but I don't know if I'll get to either.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out something real quick about this Roth weather because I'm looking at what's his name saying like Adam in the chat saying that Roth is he's going over the weather right now probably.
Oh, okay.
He's lowering it a little bit in St. Louis. I don't know. His last thing still has it as orange yellow, but again, I don't mind just skipping those games. It doesn't. I could see an argument for the bats in St. Louis. But I don't feel like it's like this awesome spot with both Kikuchi against a team that I feel like never hits for me, and a terrible Angels team against Sonny Gray. I don't know. Doesn't do it for me anyway. Anyway, So I'm in on more on the Skubal. I do not like the idea of the I just think there's better plays, but I'm surprised to see this the projections as high on him as they are.
On who?
On Castillo.
Okay.
And then this is the kind like that I think I might just consider Xing out. I don't need the Clay Holmes thing on this slate. I get it. It's a fine matchup, but what are we trying to do? Because some of these pitchers, we're going to assume at least a couple of them have good games for them, which are their mid-20s. Holmes, for him to do that, it's like a complete ceiling performance. So I don't know if I can get there. And here you see the highest owned team is the Mets, and I think that there's an argument for some Miami on the other side. So I'm okay with the Mets. They're going to be popular, but so I'll be underweight because they're going to be popular. But I don't think I'm going to X them out or anything like that. And I also do think that the Cardinals are. I'm sorry, that Miami is somewhat interesting as a contrarian stack. How about you, Sheets?
Yeah, I'm not really getting to the Mets. So, it's better for my screenshot life, right? Because it's the last game, and I'm not going to have it. I don't think so. I could pretend that I'm live. Yeah, I mean it's baseball. That's the best I could describe it. It's baseball, and I mean, last I remember, Miami wasn't the greatest park to hit in, but whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, if you tell me who my projections like the most, I'd say the Mets. But if you ask me who I'm actually getting to, I'm getting very, very little of them actually.
All right. Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think that's probably the right game theory thing to do is to be underweight the team that's going to be the most popular. I do like them, however, just to make it clear. I just don't know how to play them this popular. So I'll run a quick rebuild on the little tweaks that I made and see where I'm at and if I like it. I do want to warn everybody who's using Sheets and Goldie's projections, make sure to check the projection updates. Because I talk about this averaging them out, I like to do it, but I can't do it a lot of days because if one of them is not updated, I'm going to have a projection of a guy with a 0 and it gets too confusing. If there's like 1 or 2 guys, I can manually change it, but there's like 37 today. And that's going to happen in baseball at the beginning of the year while we're trying to figure out the starting lineups. So just make sure that you see the most recent updates as often as you can if you are going to use that combination thing. Because I know some people in our Discord said they were going to. And it's worked well for me when I've been able to use it, but there's sometimes you just can't do it. All right, so we're going to see what I'm getting to. I'm going to bet you that I'm going to end up with a lot of Skeens and a lot of Skubal, and I'm going to bet that I end up with a lot of the A's because I want a lot of the A's.
There you go.
We need them, Sheets. It's a double-sided thing.
Brutal. It's just brutal.
But again, if they win 1, I'll feel pretty good.
Yeah, I'll take my chance of winning 2 out of 3 in Colorado. Sure.
Absolutely. And look, I like that we're the only one, so it feels good at least that maybe our strategy was different than the other people. You know, at the very least.
I'm gonna run because one of my monitors broke, so I have to deal with that.
All right, we'll be back for like 1:15 Eastern-ish.
Yeah, that should be fine. One o'clock's even fine for golf.
Okay. All right. Good luck, man. And guys, we'll see you guys in about a half hour for golf, and I will try to go live later at somewhere around 5:30 or 6 Eastern. It's going to be a floating show for the late slate.